Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. How low can we go? 46% on Metacritic this time.
44 on RT, so that's...
pretty close.
Yeah.
Not far. With William Friedkin's documentary, The Devil and Father Amorth. Is that how we're saying it?
I think so.
Amorth, we're gonna go with that. And if we know you're probably listening to this episode on Facebook, if you want to help out the show for free $99, consider giving us a review on Spotify, which is new. I just discovered it yesterday.
Amazing.
On Spotify or iTunes. Either one of those would mean the absolute world to us. With that said, let's hop into this movie. This documentary, this is a
Maybe.
this is interesting.
Who knows what this movie is.
So, quick rundown of what this movie is. Famous director William Friedkin, known for The Exorcist, Sorcerer, To Live and Die in L.A., French Connection.
Cruising.
He had the realization that he made like the best exorcism film of all time, but he's never witnessed an exorcism with his own eyeballs. So he goes over to Rome and witnesses one for himself.
Done by a 91-year-old, the
World War
chief
II
exorcist
vet.
of the Diocese of Rome.
Yes.
Right.
Not
The official Vatican exorcist, I don't think, but the official exorcist for the Diocese of Rome, which...
We did see someone who was recognized by the Vatican. He was at the LA Haunted Hayride.
Oh, that's
He did a PowerPoint presentation, and it was by far the coolest thing there.
You got to tell this. Like, I don't know we've ever
So
told
it was
this.
the first year that I think I moved to, or no, it was before I moved to LA. Alex was out here. I came to visit, and the LA Haunted Hayride was up and running. And this was like 2014, maybe 2015. There was a year where they got bought out by someone, and they haven't been the same since. That year, it was amazing. The hayride was themed after like murders in the LA Zoo, and it was like really, really creepy and super well done. On top of that, every hour, every half hour, this guy who's recognized by the Vatican came out and did a PowerPoint presentation, basically a PowerPoint presentation,
right.
of just demonic possession and like his experience with it, and we were just so enamored by it. Like, and he didn't draw like the biggest crowd either, because everyone was there for the hayride, the snacks and being a booze and stuff like that. But it was really gripping. Like everything he talked about, he had like examples of like screams that he had heard and stuff like that, and it was really fascinating.
The most amazing thing just happened in my head. I just realized that this episode already ended for me. It's over. Bye. Like, this guy is the perfect metaphor for my take on the movie we're about to discuss. Like, most people hate this movie. Horror fans are all elsewhere in the park. And then there's one guy over here with this crappy PowerPoint presentation with some interesting info. And he's like kind of old. And I'm just over there listening to this guy. And it's William Friedkin in this fucking movie's over there. I'm just like, this guy's the metaphor for my take. But okay, that's amazing.
All right. So that was what we witnessed here. I hope that guy's doing well. We love your PowerPoint. Love to have you on sometime.
All right.
So this movie, let's just jump into order
in the court.
Order in the court. Order of discussion.
Yep.
This is an interesting one. I have owning exorcisms. owning exorcisms.
So let's just put the cards on the table real quick. This movie is such a mess, and it's so hard to figure out what you're even experiencing when you're watch this movie. It also seems to be hard for a lot of people to generate any care of what they're watching while they're. But the reception of this movie was basically worst documentary, cash grab. Why is my grandfather making a documentary? The special effects are terrible. Like all this stuff. I could not find a single person who in good faith like raved this movie online. Not a human being.
Right.
I didn't look that hard, but it shouldn't be that hard to find one, right?
Yeah.
Especially from this obscure director who hopefully makes it someday.
Some indie guy,
right,
yeah.
Exactly. So, but what's interesting about that is, has any director ever owned a cinematic concept as completely as William Friedkin owns the cinematic concept of exorcism? Like we were talking about before we were recording, if you pick another concept, right, any other concepts of whatever, the example I was using was knife killings, right? So like Hitchcock owns knife killings in horror. Well, no, I mean, we could have 1,000 different Wes Craven, Scream, different arguments about whatever. But it's very hard to argue against the fact that the peak of exorcism cinema is The Exorcist, right?
Yeah, we were running through other movies with exorcisms, and remember, like you got the Exorcism of Emily Rose. I think there was an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog where Muriel gets possessed. You know,
and that's the list.
And that's
there's literally Exorcist 3 in this own franchise, which a lot of people could make convincing arguments is as good as the original, right? There's a lot of good exorcism movies, but between how it was made, the impact, it's literally a hinge in horror history, like the door swings.
Anytime you mention, like performing. If you told like a horror fan, "Hey, act like you're performing an exorcism," they're gonna say the power of Christ compels you. And
right.
They're gonna
what
do.
Else are you gonna
yeah,
do?
they're gonna do
right.
everything from
right.
The Exorcist.
Right. They're not gonna bust out "Deliver Us from Evil." So if
bend backwards like in Emily Rose,
if they do,
if they do what Jennifer Carpenter did and they bend backwards, I'm running.
So
I'm calling William Friedkin so he can actually see a real exorcism, unlike what we got here.
He'll come
with his camera.
He'll come walking
we
with
got
his,
that
with
visual
his
too.
Camera. So the point is this man owns a huge concept in a genre of cinema, and he is given the chance to do the definitive documentary on, so he could have the best fictional version of this subject and own the nonfiction of it, and instead he gave us this. Right?
Yes.
And that is so confusing. And my analogy for this was, it'd be like giving Bill Belichick $1 billion to do a 1-hour documentary on football strategy and have the documentary be 10 minutes of football strategy and 50 minutes of him throwing footballs at garbage cans in his driveway while randomly playing snippets of music while his friends drive by and yell football things at him. Right? It's kind of the vibe of this film. So what is happening with this movie? But you hate this movie more than me. So tell me what your reaction is.
Weird. I don't.
Yeah, wrong word.
You keep saying hate, and I don't hate this movie.
Right, you're right. I'm saying my apologies.
I'm very... So, to kick off how I feel about this movie, I'm going to quote my therapist.
Let's do this.
I love her. She's the greatest woman to ever talk to. Mm-hmm. But one thing she told me was, you can love someone, but not like the way they are treating you. And that's how I feel about William Friedkin. Like, I love your body of work, but I don't like how you treated me in this documentary.
Interesting.
And I'll just jump into why.
Dude, yeah.
So,
because I'm processing that.
So in this movie, he goes to film it. He goes to Rome. Mm-hmm. He goes to the guy who's recognized by the Catholic Church of Rome. Yeah, Father Amorth. He goes there and he films an exorcism, which is done in a fluorescently lit office. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. there's parts where during the exorcism, the woman starts to scream. Mm-hmm. And when she screams, William Friedkin says that it's not doctored.
We're here already? Okay, let's do this.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I have to explain how I'm being treated. Totally. And to me, it is very clearly digitally altered. Mm-hmm. She is screaming like she's in Call of Duty Zombies. It doesn't sound like she's screaming like someone who can do. There's certain singers where they can do like tritones and dual tones with their mm-hmm. voice, and it's something that they train years to do, and it's really cool. To me, it sounds clearly digitally altered.
Like you compared it to a video game.
Yeah, I compared it to in Call of Duty Zombies. There's a certain scream they do, and everyone's probably heard it, even if you don't play the game, just from TikToks or whatever. And I didn't like that.
Right.
And
you guaranteed me that it was altered. As a matter of fact, you wagered.
I wagered my balls. I was like, because you looked it up while we were watching. You were like, William Friedkin says that it's real, and I was like, I will.
So William Friedkin's actual quote is, "Of course it's not altered. I would never fuck with that." I mean, that's literally the quote.
And it's William Friedkin.
And then that's ridiculous. The follow-up quote from him.
It is ridiculous, William. You're correct. It is. But I'm not mad at him about it. I don't
right.
I don't hate him for it. It's whatever. Sure. But one, I'll hand him the cleaver.
Right.
And two, I will fly to Rome with him and be like, let's.
Right.
I will.
You just don't like being treated this way.
I will go with him to another exorcism so I can hear it audibly through my own ears, because I believe that is bullshit.
That's interesting.
I don't believe him. I think he is lying about it.
Right. Okay, so let's table whether it's real or not just for a second, because there might be. It's hard to imagine that if you were doing that's the only shenanigans you'd pull in an entire film. So are there other shenanigans in this movie?
I feel like So he goes to then talk to a bunch of doctors, psychologists
After The Exorcist.
after that, and he asks them if this kind of stuff is real. And some of the doctors, well, the first guy is kind of like, oh yeah, like you need an exorcism to fix that. And then he talks to another doctor who's all bandaged up for some reason.
This guy looked like he fought Klitschko.
Yeah, he does. And I loved that doctor. And he to me, he wasn't buying it, but he gave William Friedkin the answers that he knew the documentary needed, but it only because it very lightly fit the bill of what Friedkin was looking for.
Right.
And then he goes and he talks to the doctor, the psychologist, and what they say is they acknowledge, and this is my view of it. You have a very different thing, I'm guessing.
So I do.
The psychologists say that they recognize it as an exorcism, because of, and you actually were in the bathroom doing the same, so we need to actually show you this scene. They say because of how religion is in our world, that these people recognize that if you call it an exorcism, that their brains will click with that and it will help their psychosis.
Yeah, it's a placebo effect, right?
Yeah, it's a placebo. It will help their psychosis to flip it. So for that reason,
they're endorsing
they're justifying the ends, whatever. So they say, yes, we will acknowledge it as an exorcism because it solves our patients.
Right.
But to say they acknowledge the existence of the devil, they won't.
Right.
They're just saying, we're doing that to help our thing. And so then after that, William Friedkin goes to the camera and goes, it's amazing to me that they acknowledge exorcisms as a real thing. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. No. They do it. And I see what he's doing. But but to me, it's like handing me a beautifully cooked steak and I cut into it and inside is a turd. Right. Like I know what you're doing. I'm not mad at him.
Right. It's the other shenanigans. So your interpretation of what went down here basically boils down to this, I think. It boils down to William Friedkin goes to the doctors and says, it's really weird, but it seems like they're doing this thing, and if it wasn't real, how would it work? And they would be like, placebos work. And he'd be like, oh, placebos work. And then he walks away and turns to us and goes, exorcisms are real. That's how you're taking
That's
it.
how...
Right, but that's not what I think he did, right? So, like, because all he did was restate the thing that they said. They all said the same thing. So you're mad at him for saying what they said, but you're not mad at them for saying what they said. They literally all said the exact same thing.
I'm not mad.
It's like A equals A equals A.
I'm not mad at him for saying it. What I'm upset.
But you're charging him for being deceptive.
I think he's
all he did was restate what they said.
I think he is window dressing what they said to help fit the narrative of the film.
Right.
And I'm not.
That's
dinging it against him.
Totally.
I clearly see what he's doing.
Okay, no, we've sorted everything out. Now we know where everything is. Okay, yes. I get where so you're not really holding it against the movie entirely. You just think, first of all, it would be way better if it wasn't there. Get rid of those. Right?
I do feel like there is some bending of the realities to fit it, and I think the reason he does it is because I think William Friedkin is a great storyteller, and I think he's using that angle to help push the way he wants to tell how exorcisms
Okay, so
are
re-edit this movie and take out the digital scream and have him walk out of the talking to the psychiatrist and staying instead. Wow, they really seem to think exorcism is kind of bullshit, but keep everything else in the movie the same. Is this movie better or worse now?
Better.
Okay,
I think
because you didn't like that stuff, right?
I didn't like it, and the thing is where the exorcism. So this is very, because I was thinking about that after you left. I was like, you could actually just re-edit this and make it a better movie, and it wouldn't take a lot,
right?
Because the exorcism that happens, even if you believe in it or not, and with the altered screams, you and I were genuinely creeped out by it.
Yep.
It is a creepy fucking scene. It is 20 minutes of people chanting and this woman like squirming in her seat. These dudes like holding her down, and it goes on for so long that you just get sucked into it, and it's weird. It's creepy.
Right.
So there's a lot of like really genuine shit in the movie that I think would work. That I think could one work as a documentary, but also work for the story he's trying to tell, and to prove the things he's trying to prove.
So you think the altered voice is a little too showy and obvious?
Yes, and I think he's doing that because he's a storyteller.
Right. So he left it in because it's showing obvious, but it made the story better. And in The Exorcist, he took out the spider walk scene because it was showing and obvious. But in this one, he added the showing and obvious. Why is the same person doing the opposite things?
Why? Wait, say that again.
So William Friedkin took out the spider walk scene in the original Exorcist. It's not in there because he thought it was too showy and too obvious. But you're saying in this one, he added digitally altered screams that were showy and obvious. So he did it right over there and fucked it up over here. So why?
Maybe because he's older, he hasn't done
He's
anything in a
step.
while,
Right, exactly.
or
That's what I thought.
He's in a digital age,
okay.
Shooting.
So
with
now,
DSLRs.
so we're exactly where I thought we would be, and that's kind of okay. So now, from my point of view, I re-edited the movie. I hated it. I hated the idea that it was altered because I told you in the movie, I got obsessed with it. I was Googling it while we were watching. I was missing things. Yeah. I was like, this makes this whole movie shit if he lied. And he's just altering stuff, then it's fake. Especially since that the actual exorcism, if you're altering the voice, if she's not possessed, something's wrong with her. Mm-hmm. You're altering the voice of someone who has something wrong with them. That's horrible, right? So, unless you're, I don't know, I can't get behind that. So all of that made me mad. So I was like, this movie. So I re-edited the movie in my head. I took that scream out. I did the non-shenanigans things. And the movie's worse. And the reason it's worse is because these things you hate are the only thing that makes this movie work. The reason why, the reason why is because this movie is not, this movie knows that what it's trying to do can't be done. It's trying to give you, so William Friedkin said that Sorcerer was his favorite film of his films. And he said it was because it was the most authentic and the most personal, right? So this movie feels like there's more William Friedkin in this movie than there should have been, right? Like for some reason he front and centered himself. This movie has all the hallmarks of a con job. It's too short. It's fluffed with stock footage and side alleyways of things that you never find out about later, and like Pontius Pilate's steps.
He shoots every interview completely different.
Every interview is different. He shows up with his camera like he's like Find Waldo, so just pops in and shoots. Like all of that is like manic and crazy or whatever. Right. But the thing is, exorcisms are mind-numbingly boring because what this movie decided to land on as its belief system was that the more you think about evil, the more you invite it into your life. The reason that the tradition of you have to invite a vampire in is because you're complicit in your own downfall.
Right.
You have to participate, right? So that's what's happening here is this movie was like, this movie knows that the more you think about evil and the more you think about exorcism, the more down a dark path you might go. Matter of fact, the scholar that the movie foregrounds with, Jeffrey Burton Russell, talks more about depression, and he's retired from studying evil. That guy looked like he'd seen some shit. Yeah, he looked like he lived in the ninth gate. Right? Yeah. He looked like one of those scholars who, like, behind his eyes, they were all dark, and he was like, they were like, what do you think of evil? He's like, I don't read about it anymore, man.
We don't go there.
We don't go there anymore.
He's got notepads full of pentagrams.
Right, it wears you out.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, this movie knows that what it's going to do is it's going to stay a little time on the subject, then switch it up and go over here. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to switch it up and go over here. And then it's going to switch it up and go over here because it doesn't want to focus on one kind of evil too long. It's protecting itself from what it's studying. So then it gets interested over here and goes over here, does some silly, way freaking old man shit, and then does some brilliant shit, and then moves on over here. And that's the thing is, this movie was pre-broken and it knew it. It knew it couldn't be what it wanted to be. The amazing thing is there's actually like history of this. F for Fake is one of the greatest documentaries ever made. It's an Orson Welles documentary. Who owned like intelligent cinema more than Orson Welles? He's the same position as Friedkin, just way higher with a way bigger reach. And he makes this broken, effed up documentary that no one understands that looks like it was filmed for $7. There's like him in his like editing room, just throwing reels around in the air. There's no light. Like, what's going on here? And he's doing magic tricks. He's like, look, I'm going to make a cigarette disappear. Greatest documentary of all time. And he says it in the movie. He goes, what I'm trying to do is not doable. Right. So this is a guy who's trying to study evil without inviting it in, who's healthily afraid of it. And also, every time he initiates interest in The Exorcist, he makes money, right? So you combine all those things, and I think we're here. And I think he got crucified for the exact same thing that we celebrate John Carpenter for. And the difference is, John Carpenter's playing video games, And this guy's still making movies about evil, right?
Right.
So fuck him. As horror fans, we're like, the guy who's still trying to make movies about evil. No, the video game guy. That's the guy. Cash grabs, great. Like when John Carpenter's like, I just want to get paid, great. He's awesome. William Friedkin's like, when I'm gonna throw a little extra stuff in here because I make some extra money on the side, but I'm really interested in the subject. Nope, screw you. That to me, that's how it felt, right? So I see that one angle of the. Does it make sense?
I see. I know. I see what you're saying.
And I don't know that's right. I'm just saying, like, I felt this other side while I was watching it, and then after I watched it, where I was like, wait, really? This is.
Are you saying that
besides the actual digital art altered? Because we got to get back.
Are you
to
saying Friedkin is undeserving of any critical?
Oh no.
Whereas Carpenter,
he's definitely deserved critical. He's just what has to happen is that an open mind has to be retained for the other stuff that's happening in this movie. Because while all of the stuff that the internet and all that stuff was talking about what was going on in the movie, this movie was quietly giving you this amazing 91-year-old, hilarious, smart, dedicated, hardworking, father possibly. I don't know. Maybe he's like a huge misogynist, patriarchal asshole. I don't know. But like the way the movie was presenting him it was a person who genuinely thought he was helping people in the way that they could. And he had like exorcist techniques, right? He was like doing his things. And then William Friedkin was interested that in a way that, like, if Eli Roth makes a documentary about exorcism, it'll be about the history of cinema exorcism. No one time will you see Father Amorth going down a hallway flipping off the devil, right? So these are the great things that the movie gives you, but no one cared because they were really focused on the fact that William Friedkin's a cash grabby, old, out of touch guy with bad special effects who made an exploitative movie that was a hour 9 because he couldn't get more crap in there, right? Right? I mean, that's basically the summary of the movie from the internet point of view, from the negative side. So I was like, what counters that? And the only thing I could think to counter that is that if William Friedkin is actually what he says he is, if he's an interested like person studying a subject weirdly in and out, right? Like he does The Exorcist and goes away for 40 years. So it's not like he's obsessed with this, right? So here's a subject he knows really well, but he doesn't want to get too close to. So why? And why does this movie keep dipping into something and dipping out of it? Right? That it feels like there might be more going on here than the cash grab stuff. Some of the stuff that why this movie is shaped the way it is might be just because he's authentically a weird, interesting, smart person with artistic intentions, right? So, but you're not buying into that. So tell me what is good in the movie?
I'll tell you what could be good in the movie, or what I thought was good. The problem is he added so much flair, untrustworthy flair, that it does soil the rest of the movie. Now there are things in there that I think could be interesting. One, it's called The Devil and Father Amorth. There should have been a lot more Father Amorth in there. I think if he had focused more, you really only got a little bit of history from him.
How are you going to put more Father Amorth in there? You just said all the exorcism was a boring thing in an office.
You could do his. I mean, it's just like why I liked the guy at the Haunted Hayride. He just presented what he had. He presented his history, what makes a demonic possession, how you perform this kind of stuff, what you need to do with it.
Right.
And if you just presented that in a God-honest way, that is interesting and that is frightening. When you put a bunch of smoke and mirrors in front of it, it immediately kind of just makes you distrust everything else. But I think there is a genuine story you could tell about the father, about his history, about the people he's helped, which they did in the beginning, and that stuff was very interesting.
Oh yeah, first of all, you're right. We got to go back to the scariest person in the movie is the cured first exorcist woman.
I don't know if she was cured.
She was terrifying.
She looked pretty scary.
She's the most terrifying real once possessed person I think I've ever seen on film.
Yeah, no,
as post-possessed, right?
She was unsettling, and her brother looked like he'd seen some shit.
Right, and I've seen a lot of exorcist movies and documentaries, and she's the most terrifying real human being post-possession I've ever seen because he slipped her into this movie.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there's more of a human story he could have told.
Okay, so I'm agreeing with the human part of it, that's in there and that it was good and all that stuff was that makes sense. Except for the thing is when you I feel like you're presented with bad options as William Friedkin at the point that you're talking about. Father Amorth gets up, goes to the bathroom for 3 hours, reads a paper for 2 hours because he can read 5 words a minute, and then goes and does an exorcism, and then goes and sleeps. Like the more Father Amorth you put into a movie, the more boring it's going to get, right?
I don't think that's true. I think because given his history and the people that he's helped and the idea of the exorcisms in that city, I mean, even the cities they were at in Rome had a lot of history behind them and a lot of like scary shit that they had presented. You could have went that angle.
Okay, so you could have gone the archival angle.
Yeah,
like back in the day, Father
Amorth.
Right,
yes,
right.
I think you could have done a lot of that, and in tandem, you could have then after you talk to him, you talk to his patients, people's help, then you go to the doctors and the psychologist, and then you tie that angle into it. And I think that is how you would have a more authentic story that would probably be more compelling, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, there's no wrong about opinions. The thing I'm trying to look at, I'm trying to think about it because I'm trying to explain what happened here. So I'm trying to think about it from a filmmaker's point of view, right? And for a person who made Sorcerer and French Connection or whatever, like I feel like when you're looking at this movie and you're thinking to yourself, I have the option of telling you that Father Amorth told me this story once about how he chanted at this devil icon in this room, and now here's the room. Look, there's the spiderwebs and the dust and the thing. And 20 years ago, he was here, and there was this great moment where he shouted at the stone, and the stone was sweating blood. I mean, it would look like this, right? Or he could do what he did in this movie. I can see why he did what he did in this movie, right? Because what you're saying would be interesting to you, but I don't see a lot of really hit documentaries who hone in on following 91-year-old humans around and reminiscing about what they did back in the day, right? Like that doesn't seem.
It's like every historical documentary, though. It's just people talking about what they did back in the day.
Absolutely, totally percent. So exactly. So what you were saying
you tell
is
me there's no good historical.
No. I'm saying there's tons of them. I'm saying there aren't a lot of horror fans who buy Ken Burns stuff. Right, or I'm saying it the wrong way.
Ken Burns did an exorcism.
There are a lot of horror fans who want William Friedkin to turn into Ken Burns. Is what I mean to say.
I think he could use a little. I think
I know you do.
To me, the thing is if I'm William Friedkin, if you have to do what he did, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just not tell it. Mm-hmm. Maybe you should just decide. The movie's impossible to make. Maybe you should just decide, hey, this. If I'm gonna give you some bullshit, rethink it. Rethink your approach.
He did, and then he did it anyway because he realized this movie was impossible to make. That's what I'm trying to tell you is there was no way to. There's no way to do the movie that it doesn't matter. So let's move on from this because let's go back to the altered. So you're 100% sure it's altered, the scream, the effect of that, right?
100%.
Right. We didn't give the internet reaction, so we did search around for it. I don't want us to leave hanging with that like we were lazy and didn't look. We looked, and it's very ambiguous still, right? There's a couple websites. There's this Random Lifehacker Australia website who leads to a music forum where I guess there's some kind of release of this movie pre-Netflix where it was less edited, where they found a voice that sounded less demon-y. Mm-hmm. So the hypothesis is that the one we're seeing now is where he added that, but it sounded like this over here. I wasn't able to successfully listen to it because the webpage just blanked out every time I tried to go to it. I found, there's Roger Ebert, the review site asks whether it was and tells you that Friedkin denies it and then just leaves it, right? AV Club assumes that it was done and makes fun of it, but doesn't prove it, right? It's so weird that it's not like I feel like this is something it's 2022. We should be able to just figure this out like one way or another.
I think you can figure out by listening to it. It is so
right. I know I sound dumb because you're like, it's everyone.
I mean,
knows.
If you're listening to this, you can be your own judge.
No, I get that everyone knows, and I'm 100% sure that it's right and it is altered. What I'm saying is that I'm also 100% sure that Rome is the capital of Italy, but I can Google that easily, and I can't, even though we're 100% sure it's right. So it's just weird that it was fuzzier, but it's probably just because it's so obscure. Which brings me back to the point that the man who owns the Exorcist concept in cinema made a documentary that's so obscure that only Lifehacker Australia cares about whether he did something really effed up in the movie or not. How is that possible? Right? Like if you went to David Fincher and you said, we want a documentary on the history of like thrillers, and he did a documentary on thrillers, and it became like, it won the Oscar for best documentary of the year, and people were like, wow, that was the best film documentary of years. And then it turned out later that he like changed 3 important stories about main Hollywood celebrities in it just because he thought it would make it better. We would all know it. It would be a huge damn deal, right? William Friedkin did this here, and no one cares because everything has moved on from his type of exorcism, his type of filmmaking, his type of whatever. So he's just on an island over here with like whatever this is. That's the point, is that I think that's where it ends up. And that's more interesting to me than whether it actually was altered or not. I mean,
so you're more interested in William Friedkin's social standing in society and culture.
I'm more interested in the fact that this movie is going to mess with my head and figuring out my experience of it and what happened with it more than most movies I see with 10 times the budget of this movie. It will end up being more interesting. So like, you know, I have basically 3 responses to the movie in the immediate. I either hate it in the immediate, I love it in the immediate, or I'm paused for it in the immediate, right? But the thing I know is there are some movies that are just dead to me right away. They're pinned to a mat like a bug with a pin, right? They're never going to move. They're going to be the same movie when I come back later that they were like when I the first time I saw it, right? Sure. Some movies will change over time because they're more interesting or they were more intelligent later or whatever, right? This movie is pinned on the mat, but every time I go to reach to figure out what's going on, the pin sticks me, right? So the movie should be dead.
Is it because you like William Friedkin, or do you like the idea of what he's doing?
The movie itself gave me a really charming exorcist who was surprisingly fierce, who had jokes, who had like
we got to get to the jokes.
Who had jokes? Who like he looked like he wasn't looking like peeping anything in the room. He looked like he could barely see anything, and then all of a sudden something would happen way across the room with some random person who's supposed to be doing some support move, and he was like on it. His eyes would get really wide. And he'd be like, "No, over there," and then we'd get back to like thing. He was reading off one damn card that he never flipped that looked like it
laminated.
Laminated looked like it had 28 words on it maximum, right? Then the movie postulates that there's an evil force, that it's not like basically where the movie lands is that there's an evil force that wants you to think about evil. It wants to permeate with evil. It's like tar. And that the more you try to get stuck in it, the more you try to think your way out of it, the more it sticks to you. And that evil force can weigh you down and wear you out. And that's what the exorcism concept, one of the scary sides of the exorcism concept is that. And I got a clearer sense of that from this documentary than almost anything I've seen on exorcisms, along with all the crap you're talking about, right? So it's not that I like William Friedkin. It's not that whatever. I'm just dealing with, in this movie, there were interesting moments, unexpected moments, surprises.
I agree.
It's the funniest exorcism documentary ever made. Right. So there's all this stuff in it where I'm like, okay, there's all that in it and all this crap working against it. So that means that in the end, he made a more interesting thing than a more polished version of this would have been. Does that make sense?
No, and no, I'm kidding. No, I do see what you're saying, and I'm glad that you had that experience with it, because I feel like we're in the same pool though. Like I feel like we're in the same pool, just on like sort of opposite ends.
Because you like those things too.
I do.
Right.
There are things that I absolutely thought was charming about this documentary that I thought was good. And to me, if I'm being honest, it kind of just feels like William Friedkin had free reign to have creative vision on a documentary, and his vision, is a little dated in the digital age.
Of course, right.
And so that's where it starts to rub off on me. But there's things that he did really well, like his retelling of what happened when he went into that church with that lady. Him telling that story. I think he is a great storyteller. Interesting. But I feel like he needs more help when it comes to this. Like when it comes to like some of his greatest work. He didn't write it, for example.
Right.
This one, it looks like he kind of just follows his own thing, and that's fine. That's fine. Like, not every director's a great writer. Not every writer's a great director.
Totally.
So, I feel like we're in the same area, but like we're in the same gray. We're on the opposite sides of the same gray area. Is how I would probably describe it.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Except for in a weird way, I think I'm a little more suspicious of Friedkin than you are, because the other thing we discovered watching this movie and thinking about his work was that, like, I guess maybe unbeknownst to me, or, it's not really that noticeable, I hear from time to time about really deeply like negative filmmakers, right? Michael Reeves, the director who did Witchfinder General, is legendary as like a really bleak mindset, right? But you have people who have really, really dark. Everyone's like, oh, David Lynch is so dark and weird and whatever. When you actually look at some of the stuff in Friedkin's work, whether it was like Bug that we were talking about,
yeah, we did talk about that,
right? Or Cruisin', he has done works that seem very hostile to just the idea of humanity in general, or anything like that. Very like dark stuff. So if you have a person who can go toe to toe with Wages of Fear, who can make French Connection, who fully understands, who when he was doing The Exorcist was doing long, uncomfortable medical sequences to show you that that's as horrible as the exorcism process itself, like being impersonally, poked and prodded and experimented on and guessed about and all that stuff is really unfortunate. But the exorcism he shows in this movie has a lot of the same feel as that, right? So this is a person who is doing this very, very strange getting it right over here, not getting it right here thing. And there's only two possibilities. He's either old and lost, or he's doing something else. And I'm just reserving the possibility that something else.
I think that's completely fair.
Something else was happening. I think the odds are vastly that it's not. I think the odds are that it's a cash grab, and it's like it's manipulative, and that he's old and lost and an egomaniac and mean and all that stuff. But if there was a something else here, the something else would be, you people talk about gaze into the abyss too long and it gazes back into you. I believe it. Right? I'm not going to gaze into this too long. I'm going to dip my toe in the water over here, study this, back away, go over here, do some of this, back away, take 38 years off, come over here, revisit it, back away. I'm only going to deal with the stuff I'm interested in, and I'm going to try to put it together into a thing that makes sense in my head of like, why did I own a concept? I'm an agnostic. I'm not even a Catholic. Why do I own this concept? Like, why am I the cinema apex of this? Like, I only think about this every 30 years, but now I'm looking back at this, and I think there's very weird things going on here, but I think that this is something that shouldn't be messed with too much. I didn't mess with it too much. I thought about it some. Here's what I came up with. That would be something else, right? So I don't know, but I'm sure I'm the only one who would think that, because I'm sure a lot of other people are just like, I mean, I played for you right before this. There was a podcast, I forget the name of it now, where they literally named this the worst movie they'd ever watched.
Yes.
Like worst documentary they'd ever watched, right? So this is a pretty well-hated movie, so I get that. All right. What else is interesting about this before we...
Well, the father who did the exorcisms, he went in there and like just started cracking jokes. Like he cracks jokes before an exorcism, which is like the coolest goddamn thing ever.
Right, because you would wonder yourself, like, the image is the exorcist and the lamppost. But what's next? When he walks through that door and the exorcists come into your house, like, what's his move? And this movie shows you what his move is, which...
he basically walked in, he's like, who's got two thumbs, is ready to kick some ass? Like, this guy. That's how he walks into an exorcism.
He's still like, who's got two thumbs that's ready to kick the devil's ass? This guy.
Boom, right here.
Right.
Father me, dude. He's ready to go in there. He's ready to go in there and just start. I was waiting.
So if you were doing exorcism, how would you come into a room?
All right. First of all, I'm putting holy water in a super soaker, and not like the squirt guns, like the little baby ones. I'm talking about the kind that got banned in like 1998, like the kind that would pierce skin. Like I'm not fucking around. I'm not messing around, dude. Like that thing fully pumped. And if you're born in the 90s, you know exactly which super soaker I'm talking about. Not the purple and orange one. I'm talking about the red one that was so heavy it came with a strap. I actually was telling Alex and Jenny about this. You had to pump it so much. It was like jerking off a dragon. Like you had to like pump this fucking thing so hard, and it would shoot like a motherfucker. So I'm getting that one. I'm bringing that in.
I'm with you.
Strapped like Rambo. All right.
Backup vials and a chain like around your head.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I'm gonna sharpen crucifixes so I can throw them into the walls.
This is gonna look like Scout's Guide to the Exorcism.
That's exactly what it would be. Yeah, so that would be my
your
initial,
entrance move. But do different exorcism call for different moves, right? Like if I gave you a scenario, so like, all right, Nick the Exorcist, right? All right, you showed up for the job, the door creaks open, you come in, and I'm like, oh man, this guy he's a Korean war vet. He's only got one eye. And he's just mumbling over and over, who am I? Nobody. Like, so what's your move? You walk in. What do you like? How do you deal with this guy? Like, do you have to change it, or can you just roll in with your super soaker and blast him?
Well, listen, there's some things that are universal, but with him, I'd spice it up a little bit. I would start by moonwalking in, and I would say something. I'm possessed by these. I would play music, and I'd say I'm possessed by these sick ass beats. And then I would ask the devil if he had any moves on the dance, if he can cut the rug.
Oh man,
I would try to get the demons.
I wonder what the devil's moves would have been.
I would try to get the demon to dance a little bit, and then because honestly, if I'm an exorcist now, I got a TikTok.
Oh sure, 100%.
And
are there actual exorcists with TikToks?
I haven't looked that up.
Oh man, we should know. Okay,
if we look it up and we bring this to it, because our editing shit.
Yep.
I would try to get the devil to dance. Much like, wasn't there a Liam? Oh God, not Liam. Oh my God, Leslie Nelson, Devil in the Blue Dress. Didn't they do he did a movie where he spoofed The Exorcist. So I would try to get him to dance.
So I think Devil in the Blue Dress is a Denzel Washington movie. Maybe, and I think I know what you're talking about. So Leslie Nielsen did one of those, like,
and they started dancing
spoofs.
Yeah, right. They started dancing. So I would try to get that old vet cut the rug.
Okay,
blast him with the super soaker and just go straight.
And you're just done.
Then I would take Father Amorth's saran wrapped literature and take 6 hours to read through it. That's how I would go about it.
Yeah,
but Father Amorth did crack jokes, and what we said before we started recording this, like, this is the funniest exorcism documentary, which is not the review.
Which is weird.
Yeah, you would expect that, but he was really charming. You gotta have charm to be an exorcist.
And some of the like Friedkin special effects are like Birdemic level in this movie, so even those are hilarious. I know you liked a lot of the church he was reenacting, whatever, but there were like camera zooms.
Oh yeah, he cuts to a lot of weird shots, and the music in this documentary, I feel like he went to YouTube and just put in scary music and just ripped that music, because the music in this movie is terrifying. It's like insidious violins, sounding shit. It's really scary.
It is.
It doesn't really fit the theme of the documentary because it's so like the music is so frightening in this music in this.
That's the thing is, I ended up getting a little creeped out by this movie heading home after we went and looked at the art, because it just kept bothering me, the one supposedly cured woman that he had been talking to, and just how unnatural.
Well, her line at the end of the movie was unsettling, because during the filming, Father Mort passed away. He caught pneumonia, and he went to the hospital, got pneumonia, and then he passed away. His funeral, like, a lot of people showed up. At first, it looked like you joked, because he said, I think Friedkin says, like, hundreds of people showed up, and you were like, it looks like it's 30, because it did. The shot looked like it was 30, but then it cuts.
Then it widens out.
Yeah, then it widens out, and it's like a cathedral just packed of people, like, kneeling at the coffin. So, like, it was that was kind of cool to see, like, what he meant to his community, and like that's the part I wish they went towards. But where was I going with that? Father Amorth's really great.
It's weird that you say that because I was thinking that he randomly put those Vatican steps in there, the Pontius Pilate steps. First of all, he says Pontius.
Pontius.
Can we just? What is this? Is Pontius right and we're all wrong? Is that like? Because that would be amazing.
I've heard Pontius. Yeah,
I've heard Pontius.
Yeah, I've heard the other way.
But anyway, these are the steps you have to crawl up them. You can't.
I didn't know that.
You can't stand. You can't walk. Right, but there was why is this random detail so highlighted in this movie? Like he really hung on it. That's what I'm telling you. Is he approaches the subject at a crawl.
Yeah.
Right. I think this movie is the way it is because he respects exorcism more than any of us do. But we'll see. But yeah, the music was. I couldn't tell. I knew the music was terrifying, but I couldn't tell. It would zoom in and out of the movie, and sometimes what was on the screen was boring, and sometimes what was on the screen was scary. So I was like, is he randomly adding music? What's happening?
Yeah, no, the editing is kind of whack in this movie. I'll be honest. It's a weird movie. It's an hour 10 minutes. It feels like people keep saying it's a cash grab. What cash did he grab from this movie?
That's right. It's an epic disaster.
I'd be very curious.
Well, if it sparked more sales of Exorcism, he gets royalties.
Yeah. So there is a shot that when he's interviewing all the doctors and stuff like that, he has like another cameraman in there, and you just see William Friedkin with like a camera holding it up with like headphones on. And I want to add William Friedkin to just other movies, like with his camera. I want to add him to like Free Solo. He's just watching Alex Arnold fly with his little camera, with like little 50mm lens on it.
Totally. This is a pretty memeable movie.
It is a pretty memeable movie, but now we got to rate it.
Yeah, let's rate it. You go first.
Okay, so I think there's a lot in there that could work really, really well. So right now it's at 46%. That's not low. That's not low. It's not a great one, but it could be a lot worse.
It could be.
I don't think it's far away in this ballpark.
Right.
And the one thing I didn't touch on is William Friedkin has a really good voice for documentaries, and whenever it cuts to him at like Georgetown and he's like doing like sort of like the walk and talks, I really like those, and it's very engaging. I would actually watch another William Friedkin documentary. I wouldn't let this one deter me from
watching
another one. So at 46% on Metacritic, I was unsettled by the exorcism that happened. I think I'd go 55%. I think I'd bump it up a little bit. I don't think it's the worst documentary I've ever seen. It's, is it silly in some parts? Yes. But was it scary in some parts? Yes. Was it interesting in some parts? Yes. And do I ding him for doing the other stuff? Not really, because I think he's a storyteller at heart, so he did it for that effect. I would say 55%.
That's fair. That feels right. That feels like, I mean, it's higher than it was. Right?
Yeah.
All right. I am going to rate this at 6%.
Six or just
no, just 6.
6.
Just 6%. And I'm going to rate it at 6% just because I'm going to do a favor to anyone who skipped ahead and got bored, like whatever, and they're just listening in to see what the rating were or whatever, so that they never watch this. Because again, I've only found one human being on planet Earth who really enjoyed this movie, and that's me. I mean, literally Google it for fun. Even the people who wrote positive reviews about it weren't positive about it. They were like, poor guy's lost a step, but the Father Amorth guy's interesting, so at least he got some archival footage of that dude. Like lukewarm thumb up. That's the positive take on this movie, right? There was no one who was like, "Wow, really knocked it out of the park."
No,
you're not going
to find that,
right? Yeah, but I do. Like, I can find 100 horror fans in the time it takes us to wrap up this episode who think Maximum Overdrive is their perfect horror movie. Easily, I could find them in our horror group. I could easily find people who are like, "That's my favorite horror movie," right? You can't find a human being where this is their favorite documentary. They don't exist. There's not a person alive who would say that, right? This movie precludes the ability of loving it.
I'll take that Maximum Overdrive bet.
I'm telling you, man.
I'll take that bet.
I'm telling you. I've met him. We've had him. I've talked to him in the group.
Okay, so you're 6%.
I'm 6% as a favor to make sure that no one else watches this movie but us. This movie should just end, because if this movie has been seen by as many people as it has now, and there's not a single person on Earth, on the internet, that you can uncover that really enjoys this movie, then why would you recommend this movie to anyone?
I think there's better History Channel documentaries about the topic.
Right.
Um,
But secretly, but secretly in my head, when I'm thinking about this movie, it's 82%. I can see it clear as day. This is an 82% movie in my head. But 6 is what I'm going to say officially.
It's
better than
like William Friedkin. I no longer trust you.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Don't.
I expected that actually.
I have a feeling you're probably 60%.
No, I'm 82. I'm a strong 82%. Is glowing gold in my mind.
Then go with 80. Then go with your gut.
No,
Say
6.
82%.
No, it's a 6% because you can. You could be wrong.
When you
I'm
say
wrong.
6%, when I edit this, do you want me to put in digital growls when you say 6%? Do you want me to? Do you want me to do that, George?
You totally should. Because here's the thing: this movie changed while I was watching it, after I watched it, walking home from watching it, the morning after I watched it, and while I was talking about this podcast. And I don't like movies that you pin down and they can't change. It's one of the things I really appreciated about Hereditary, right? In the end, my feeling about Hereditary was that it was a movie that was trying to show you that no matter how desperately you try to not think, thoughts are the worst thing. Thoughts lead to feelings, and they're all a disaster when you're in grief or trauma, or whatever. Thoughts. And every move you could do to not think, they do. Take off a head? Sure, right? Like, be part of a conspiracy where you're the evil center of the conspiracy and you don't even know the whole time. You can't even think you're the bad guy because you don't even know you're the bad guy, like, turns out. Sure. Like, saw your head off? Like, with a wire? Sure. We'll do everything you can do to get rid of a brain. This movie's doing. Don't think, don't think, don't think. And then at the end, you got to think about it. The movie knew that it couldn't do what it was trying to do. It's slippery. This movie's the same thing on a way lower budget.
Up for debate. All right. So 6%, but 86%.
Yeah. But 6%, but 82 because it's Hereditary of documentaries. Okay, and then
I got to put some money down on this shit, man. I'm gonna pay my bills. Okay, but totally fair. Totally fair. We asked for reviews a couple weeks ago when the Batman came out. Fun, yep. Terminator, you scared me for a second. He re-uploaded his review, and we were at 50 reviews, and then we went down to 49. I was like, who deletes a review? But he came back with a riddle, and I want to honor
which
that.
We really appreciate, yes.
I want to honor that. All right, here it is.
So we have our first official riddle, which I have not seen.
And I looked at it once and never thought about it again, so we're going to dive into this. But this is from our Batman episode, so if you do want to give a review, you can still do a riddle, but jeez, go easy. All right, here it is. I have keys, but no locks. I have space, but no room. You can enter, but can't go outside. What am I?
Yeah.
Or if you want to see it in writing, maybe that'll help you.
I have keys but no locks. I have space but no room. You can enter but can't go outside.
What do you think?
I think you can enter but can't go outside. Wow. It's Regan McNeil. No, I don't.
It's William Friedkin.
I have 2 thumbs, but I kick the devil's ass. Who am I? All right.
Father Amorth.
I don't know, but that's intriguing.
I have keys, but no locks. I have space, but no room.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, geez. I'm stumped on this one.
That's what we wanted. We wanted.
You can enter, but can't go outside. All right.
I love it.
Jeez, I don't know.
So now you have to give us the answer in another review.
Yeah, if we go to 49, I'm like, okay, Terminator's back at it again. He's gonna leave.
It's keyboard. It's a keyboard, like your computer.
Did you look it up?
Yeah.
Stumped you, Riddler. That's what Batman needs.
But that's how fast you can find that one. So we got his was a little more complicated. If
I didn't have the internet, if I didn't have the internet or Cape and Cow, I would have never got that. Commissioner Gordon would have looked at me and been like, "What good are you? You can't solve any riddles. Bat brat, get out of here. Who has 2 thumbs and wants you out of here? Fucking me, dude." All right, well, thanks for the riddle. Without the help of the internet, I wouldn't have ever solved that one.
So there's an opportunity here, right? So with riddles, clearly we're not going to solve riddles in real time without the aid of smartphones. But this one would be more interesting because you're hilarious. I'm not, but I've got a new challenge for review unless you have something planned.
No, lay it on.
I mean, it's right here. It's just laying right in front of us. Right. Father Amorth, he entered with jokes. We need some jokes.
Ooh.
Right, so you got to put some jokes and some reviews, and like
in honor of Father Amorth.
In honor of Father Amorth.
Lay your best joke in a review.
Well, I don't know if it's the best joke. You should look up some Father Amorth jokes. They tried to give us one of them in the movie, and it was not great.
It was old. It was old.
It was more his attitude.
I think it involved Ovaltine, like some rickety. I don't know. But,
give us some old jokes.
Yeah, give us your best.
Corny, like, we need your oldest, most dated joke. In honor of Father Amorth, what's your most dated joke?
Yeah, give us a joke that was 91 years old.
Oh, God.
And until next time, stay scary, watch a bunch of horror movies. We will see you guys at 45%.
5%. We're halfway through the 40s.
Oh, and just to give you kind of a taste, we're sort of surveying the field, and it looks like it's going to get extraterrestrial the further we go.
That's right. I'm excited about this.
There was one.
I'm glad you brought that up.
There was, I think, The Fourth Kind, which I've heard. Some people who've seen The Fourth Kind have been like, it is the scariest movie, but then it's like 19%, and I'm like, huh? Like,
so this is very strange. We'll cover this in the episode, so I won't talk it all now. But I came to horror through like fiction first, oddly. So I was reading like Whitley Strieber Communion. There's alien abduction thing that I liked, but then for some reason I never watch alien abduction movies in the horror genre. I've seen like Close Encounters and all that, but Fire in the Sky, Fourth Kind, Dark Sky, all that. For some reason I haven't seen any of those, but we spotted a whole bunch of good looking ones in the next like 10% bracket underneath us or so. I think Phoenix Forgotten was in there, which might be interesting. There's some other
there's a lot of cool looking
stuff.
ones.
So we're excited. It's a whole like subgenre that we
I don't know a lot about
experience.
I don't know a lot about
the
alien
X-Files, so let's do this.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about the alien stuff. So if you're listening and alien films are your passion, like, dude,
and give us some recs. Like, we need some. If there's like, it would be basically underrated alien themed horror movies, because we're at 45%. So if it's don't come in and talk to us about like Solaris or some shit.
Something like that. We're completely open to it. So on that note, stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies. We'll see y'all at 45%. Bye bye.